Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jessica Salinas. I'm the face behind Cosmetic Tattoos by Jess. And today we're going to be doing a virtual consultation where I will take you step by step and tell you everything there is to know about ombre powder brows before you book your appointment. Before booking with me, please visit my website at www.cosmetictattoosbygess.com and click on the Look Before You Book section of my site and read all the health requirements to make sure that you are a good candidate for permanent makeup before proceeding. It's super important that you complete your medical history form truthfully, as not everybody is medically eligible for the service. Let's start off by talking about the service itself. Ombre powder brows are a modern technique for implanting ink into the skin in the form of pixels using a single configuration needle in a machine. I create that beautiful ombre effect by layering my passes, which means the darkest points of your brows will be the tails and the body, and it will gradually get lighter as you get closer to the fronts. Immediately following the procedure, you can expect to feel a little tender and you may even experience some mild swelling. It's normal for fresh ink to look dark and to appear warm the first few days. This means that colors like yellow, red, and orange will stand out to you initially. Ombre brows are suitable for a wide range of skin types, and unlike microblading, they don't compromise the integrity of the skin. They can also be adjusted to be as bold or as natural as you'd like. Ombre brows are a two-step process, meaning you will come back 6 to 8 weeks later following your initial session for a touch-up. During your retouch, we can address any areas that may have healed slightly lighter or make any shape and color adjustments as necessary. If you have oily skin, it's normal to retain less pigment than someone who has dry to combination skin. The retention of your ink also depends on your skin type and lifestyle. So if you're someone who's always working out and constantly in the sun, you can expect to need to retouch closer to 1 to 1.5 years, whereas someone who's a little bit more sedentary and isn't constantly exposed to the elements can expect to retouch closer to 2 to 3 years. Once fully healed, you have complete flexibility with your brows. You can do as little as walk out the door with your perfectly filled in brows, or add a little bit of concealer and a splash of makeup to really make them pop. If at any point you decide you want to switch it up, you can let your brows fade, and over time you will gradually develop a bare canvas again. Please note that it may take a while to achieve this, as the inks and technique that I use are developed so that the ink can fade over time. However, it requires some patience. It's super important to remember that ombre brows are low maintenance, not no maintenance. It will be your responsibility to clean up and trim any hairs that grow outside of your new shape. You can do this by using the spoolie and razor that I will provide you in your aftercare kit, or use other traditional methods such as waxing, threading, or tweezing. Another way to protect your investment is by adding a thin layer of sunblock under your makeup once your brows are completely healed, of course. This can help prevent premature color fading due to sun exposure. Okay, so now that you know what ombre powder brows are, let's get into the pre-care. This is the part that everybody hates to talk about, but I can't ensure the best possible healed results if these rules aren't followed. The first and most dreaded rule of all is no caffeine. So that means that for 24 hours before your appointment, you have to avoid soda, tea, energy drinks, or any sort of caffeine. I only say this because it's happened before, but if you walk in with your venti Starbucks in your hand, I'm gonna have to send you home, and that non-refundable booking fee will not go towards a new service. And if you ask me, that's not worth the $5 Starbucks coffee that could have waited until after the appointment. The same rules apply to alcohol. Please refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages the day before your scheduled visit. Once you leave my studio, you're welcome to have as many lattes and mimosas as you please. The reasoning behind this is because caffeine and alcohol both thin the blood, which means that you'll be bleeding more throughout the procedure. That blood will actively be pushing out any ink that I'm trying to implant into the skin, therefore rendering our service useless. I find that those clients who follow my pre-care and aftercare to the T hardly ever go through the ugly part of the healing process, but instead they just notice their eyebrows getting gradually lighter over the next few days. 3 days before your scheduled appointment, you should also avoid any oral blood thinners such as Advil, ibuprofen, fish oil, and even some vitamins such as vitamin E and D. If you're feeling any kind of pain in which medication is needed, Tylenol is okay. 4 days prior, avoid altering or removing your brow hair in any way. The more you come to work with, the better. This also allows me to see how your hair naturally grows, and we can then design a shape that is suitable for low maintenance. 2 weeks before, you should discontinue the use of strong acids or strong chemical exfoliants in your skincare routine. This includes hyaluronic acid, salicylic acid, retinol, retin-A, or any type of retinoid. 1 month before, you want to avoid any type of intensive treatments to the area such as Botox, filler, laser, or any chemical services. There will also be a minimum 2-week waiting period following my services in which you'll have to avoid any kind of injections, so plan accordingly. Just because there's a discontinuation of products in your skincare routine doesn't mean that you should neglect your skin in the meantime. If you are prone to breakouts, especially in the treatment area, you should avoid anything that could lead to a breakout or flare up, as I can't work on the skin if there is any kind of blemish in or around the brows. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about the exciting part, coming in on the day of your appointment. When you first come into my studio, the first thing that we'll take care of is the health and consent forms. I'll ask you some basic questions such as, what products do you typically use on your brows? What color do you tend to gravitate towards? And do you have any pictures of your makeup done? I do this to get a visualization of how you like to style and wear your own brows. Before we start mapping, I like to set realistic expectations and talk about some of the common restrictions that I face during the appointment. This part is really important as we're going to be setting the foundation for your new shape. And in order for it to age gracefully, it should be something that suits your natural bone and face structure. Do you know that old saying, brows are sisters, not twins? There's a reason that statement is so popular, and it's because it's true. My job is to create the illusion of symmetry. However, exact symmetry is never possible. Our faces have varying levels of elevation, and we're not working on a flat piece of paper here. If you look at someone like Beyonce, a beauty icon that we all idolize, her face is not symmetrical and neither are her eyebrows. Most of us don't have perfect eyebrows that start and end at the same point, and that's why a service like this exists to begin with. There are limitations to my work, and when it comes to dealing with a great level of asymmetry, sometimes the best case scenario is leaving the asymmetries alone and just focus on making the brows look good individually. For example, if you have one eyebrow that's naturally a lot higher than the other, or if you have a strong muscle pull, we can find a midpoint to create balance and bring some harmony to the face. But the more we tattoo outside of your natural shape, the less realistic and the more manufactured your tattoo will look. This will also create a lot of maintenance on your end. If you're not keen to keeping up with cleaning and shaping your brows, this is not a good idea, as you can end up with a double tail or a double body. It's all about where we place the pigment. It's no secret that permanent makeup is an art, not a science or a magic trick, so it's gonna look different on everybody. And let's break down some of the things that you can expect. It's important to understand that areas with hair will always look darker than areas without. No tattoo or microblading can mimic the look of hair. Natural hair creates texture, dimension, and density that can't be mimicked unless you're doing a hair transplant. It's always good to keep in mind that you can always add, but you can't take away. Permanent makeup is intended to heal cooler and fade slightly, so it's always best to start off with a conservative approach, and you can always go bolder and darker at the touch-up. I would go as far as saying that the pre-draw is the most important part of the service. I take the longest time in this part of the service, as the foundation for a good tattoo is detailed mapping. I use several brow mapping techniques to ensure that the new shape we create fits your face and matches your hair growth. At this point of the process, you will see me pull out all sorts of tools, ranging from calipers, Sharpies, and even my phone to double check my symmetry on an online calculator. I will never start any procedure unless you and I are both 100% satisfied with the pre-draw. Once you sign off on the consent form stating that you approve of the shape and color, then we're ready to get started. I always start with my outline, as this serves as my guideline for the rest of the tattoo. I will take a cotton swab and gently wipe away small sections of my outline to ensure that we don't lose that shape that we just worked so hard to create. I then continue on with my shading. My clients generally need anywhere from 2 to 3 passes in order to get the perfect brow. Everyone's skin is different, and there's no way to predict how your skin will take the ink until we go in with a needle. This is where following the pre-care comes into play. The less variables that we have to work against, the better. One of the most common questions I get asked is, does it hurt? To answer that question simply, the answer is no. The procedure has been tolerable for every client that I've had up to this point, but keep in mind that everybody has a different pain tolerance. As I'm working, I always ask my clients, hey, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? And generally the highest I ever get is a 3. The outline and first pass of shading are the only parts of the procedure that get done without any numbing. After the first pass, I'll apply my numbing, and after that, you shouldn't feel a thing. It's not uncommon for my clients to state afterwards that the service was less painful than threading. The typical appointment time is around 3 to 4 hours, as good brows take time. But after that, you're good to go for the next 1.5 to 3 years. Now that we've gone through the process, let's talk aftercare. Good brows are 50% the artist and 50% the client. Following your aftercare is super important to get the best possible healed results. I provide professional aftercare kits to all of my clients following their initial session. You will be instructed to cleanse and apply an ointment twice a day. A rice grain size amount is all you need for both brows. If used correctly, you should have enough product to last you for your touch-up as well. When it comes to cleansing, you want to make sure that you start by washing your hands. You want to treat your brows like they're an open wound, which means no touching them with dirty fingers or allowing anything that has bacteria on it to touch the brows. You will take a small amount of cleanser and apply it in the direction that your brow hair naturally grows. Avoid doing windshield wiping motions where you're going back and forth, as that can be too aggressive and can take some of those scabs and flakes off prematurely. Your goal with any kind of flaking should be to leave it on as long as possible and let it fall off naturally. Following this, you let them dry and then you apply a thin layer of ointment. Don't leave this on all day though, as wounds need oxygen to heal. For 7 days following your appointment, it's imperative that you don't wear any makeup on top of the brows. The reason I say this is because if you're anything like me, you're not disinfecting your brushes and your makeup palettes on a daily basis, so there's a good chance they're harboring bacteria. Similarly, picking your scabs can lead to scarring, which is not something that you want to deal with on your face. So please avoid taking any scabs off prematurely, whether it's accidental or on purpose. Avoiding sweat and excessive sun exposure is imperative as you're going through the healing process. Sweat is made up primarily of water and sodium, and when that comes from inside of the skin, it can push the pigment out. Even a light workout can produce sweat and cause significant fading. For the same reason, exposure to excessive periods of water and sun should also be avoided. However, please note that this is not an excuse to not wash your brows. Again, you want to treat it like an open wound, which means keeping it clean. There is a difference between cleansing and oversaturating. For this reason, I do sell brow caps and half face visors in my studio. So that concludes today's virtual consultation. Thank you so much for expressing your interest in Cosmetic Tattoos by Jess. On a final note, you can find all the information that we discussed today on my website by visiting www.cosmetictattoosbygess.com. So please make sure you head on over to my site and review all the information. And make sure that you're aware of any medical contraindications before proceeding. And for those of you who book with me, I can't wait to see you soon.